Hello, everyone. I am Kelsey Woodward, the Content Marketing Manager here at GiveSmart by Community Brands. And I just want to welcome all of you fundraisers today. We so appreciate you taking the time to join us. Today is our 8th episode of our Outside the Room Fundraising Success Series. And with this series, we hope that we can continue to inspire each other through the art of the possible during these uncertain times. Today, we're joined by the marvelous Mandy Fingerhut of Cure Childhood Cancer, and she'll be sharing their story throughout kind of what 2020 has looked like for them. And also joining us are Susanna Crawford, Community Manager, and Kirsten Promozic, Training Specialist here at GiveSmart. And they are both experienced fundraisers in their own right. So ladies, thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. So just a few things before we get started. We're going to be sharing some resources today in the chat, so be on the lookout for those links. And we wanted to share those, so no matter where you are in your fundraising journey, these will be able to help you accelerate your impact and further your cause or causes, perhaps. So let's start things off with a quick pulse check on how you are feeling. How confident are you that you'll reach your goals this year? So not so hot, we're getting there, we'll hit it for sure, or we may even surpass it. So while everybody weighs in, Mandy, if over to you just to please share kind of the missions and values of Cure Childhood Cancer and the area of the country that you are currently serving.
Yeah, thanks. So we are based here in Atlanta, Georgia, and ultimately we're working to conquer childhood cancer. And so we're doing that by funding targeted research while also supporting patients and their families on their journey. That support really ranges for a variety of purposes, from serving meals in the hospitals to those families that are staying there for any amount of time. We also have a family emergency fund where we just provide financial assistance to families who are having a hard time. It might be with mortgage, car payments, bills, kind of anything. And unfortunately also bereavement care, offering that. So really just trying to meet these families directly, at their need and where they are.
Okay, that's amazing, and really great work that you guys do. So if we could share the poll results, please. Okay, and Kirsten, over to you. I know that you have been looking at the data week over week. So how does this resonate here with what you've been seeing?
Yeah, Kelsey, these numbers are great, and they fall right in line with the trend that we've been seeing over the past few months. The not so hot category continues to track down, which is amazing. While we see we're getting there, we'll hit it for sure, and that we may surpass it, are all trending up, which just gives us a more positive outlook and a more positive feeling and environment for the rest of this year, especially when we look back at March and that feeling of uncertainty and treading in these unknown waters. It just made fundraising a little daunting in that time when we were all so nervous and confused. But it's really nice to see that these numbers are continuing to trend back to the positive.
Yeah, agree. Like 61% is amazing. So cool. Okay. Moving on, let's get started. And so today we're going to be covering how Mandy and Cure Childhood Cancer pivoted for, some of their spring campaigns that they had planned. Their virtual Believe Ball became a smashing success, and Kirsten will be covering some interesting data insights. And so I've asked everyone to stay on. We're going to expect to go about 40 minutes of content and then 10 to 15 minutes after with Q&A. So please do submit your questions throughout. On the right-hand side of your screen, you should see a question submission section, and you can pop those in there, and we'll be taking those. And so with that, Susanna, can you walk us through some of the things that Mandy and her team have done thus far?
Absolutely, I'll be happy to. And first, I'm just happy to say that so excited to be here with you, Mandy, and get right into this conversation. So on the next slide, what we'll be seeing is some campuses for Cure. And to dive in, Mandy, would you describe a little bit about how all of these campuses kind of work together?
Yeah, so Cure, like I said, we're based out of Atlanta, but a number of years ago, we really realized that the patient population down in South Georgia, specifically that Savannah area, really required us to expand our staff so that way we could fulfill our mission. So we do have a team of 3 that are based down in the Savannah area. So we're all one cure, working as one group, but Savannah really does have their own community of supporters. They've got their own sort of set of events that are geared more specifically towards their community, that have been really successful for them. But we're still incredibly collaborative. So across the board, it's sharing what's working best for our events in Atlanta. Same with Savannah. How might we need to alter them just a little bit to fit each market? And really just kind of share those best practices with one another.
That's awesome to be able to collaborate and have that. Hopefully that's what we'll do today, is kind of share some of those best practices. We'll start out by jumping into one of these events that you ran, and this is an event that you said that you've been running for 26 years, this Lauren's Run, which is super exciting, and obviously this year's a little bit different. So can you tell us what it was like going from an in-person run to a virtual run?
Yeah, so this event, like you said, is 26 years in the making. It's really a community day, and it's a day for the families to get together, but it is also this race. It's actually typically a qualifier for the Peachtree Road Race here in Atlanta, which is really big in the running community in Georgia. So that's always been a big draw. When the pandemic really upended everything, we knew we needed to make that shift. But what we recognized is we had a really great opportunity now to expand our reach beyond just Atlanta and the metro area, and really kind of get the whole community of Cure involved. So our team in Savannah really worked to get the Savannah and South Georgia community involved. We approached, moms groups, running groups, other groups that we thought might have interest in it to try and get their support. And we really shifted our focus more towards just having a family fun day, a way that you can get out of the house with your kids in a safe way, of course, and just create like fun opportunities for them and less focus on it being a race, if you will. So that people could still participate in that fashion, but we saw most success with it geared towards families. And so to do that, we created different fun activities for them to do. So we did like a chalk art contest. There was a scavenger hunt. There was an opportunity for folks to like spell cure, but not using any writing materials. So, like kids were on the ground bending their bodies, to spell out cure. And it was really cute. And it also was fun on social media, and a great engagement opportunity.
Oh, this is so fun. I love all the elements you put into this. I'm curious, for anyone who's maybe looking into doing something like this now, how did you track like registration? How did you track who was doing the run? Like, did you track how many miles they did? How did the kind of the logistics in that end go?
Sure. So folks did still register just like they would have if it were an in-person event. When we do have this in person, we always have kind of a virtual runner option for people to participate that can't be there so that they can still fundraise, get the shirt, so it was really just that, but blown up, if you will. So folks were still asked to register. We do have a small registration fee. That registration fee then gets you the t-shirt, which I feel like everybody always wants the t-shirt. And then we created fundraising incentives at different levels to really just help people stay engaged, but also remember to still fundraise, because at the end of the day, this is still a fundraiser for us. So at different levels, you would qualify for a different incentive. It was like a Bluetooth speaker, cooler. I think there was like a Columbia jacket. So different things that we thought would be fun for them. In terms of tracking their time or miles, that was very much on an honor system. So we provided them the information and who they would get all that information to. And so that then that way we could recognize a winner and send them a small prize. But that 100% was honor system.
Sounds great. Sounds like a true participation experience and lots of things going on there. So thanks for sharing with that.
Yeah.
This one that we're moving into, this is a really quick turnaround. So could you quickly kind of just tell us what is this event and how did you kind of turn it around quickly and what components did you keep and all the above?
Yeah, so Spring Fever is an annual, really, it's a glorified band party. It's hosted by our Young Professional Leadership Council every year. It's a really fun event, and we try and make it something that everybody would kind of want to come to, that's in that young professional demographic. Open bar, signature cocktail stations, really great fun food stations, fun games, giant Jenga, cornhole, etc. That event was scheduled to take place exactly 2 weeks after kind of the quarantine happened. So our very first reaction was, okay, obviously this cannot happen. So myself and our executive director began reaching out to those sponsors to really communicate with them of this change. And of course, people were so understanding because it was, mandated even at that point. And then just really asking them if they would continue to support us, but of course honoring refunds. And I think we only had like 2 people that requested a refund, and they were at our lowest levels, like a ticket. So it was like a couple $100, which was really just incredible, and goes to show how supportive people could continue to be.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we'll dive into sponsorships more as we go on, but it's a really good point to bring all that up, and also that you're able to continue with your event and maybe not necessarily do all components that once was. Here's an example of something really fun that you were able to keep part of this event. Tell us a little bit about what we're seeing and what was that reaction behind it.
Yeah, so every year at the event, we typically have about 4, sometimes 5 signature cocktail stations where you would have a signature spirit, if you will, that would sponsor that station. So it would be branded just for them, and then they would create their own signature cocktail that folks would come up, and that's all that was served at that station. When it had to go virtual, we still wanted to be able to recognize those sponsors and thank them, even though we couldn't actually be together, while also providing just something fun for folks so that it wasn't just really an auction for them to participate in. So we put this together. We provided it to everybody that was registered already. We also put it on our website, sent it out social media, just so that folks had an opportunity to make these signature cocktails at home and share some pictures with us.
That is so fun. I really wish that I knew about this when this was going on. I definitely would have joined in with you. I love this idea. Fantastic. And something you guys have that's kind of special is September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So in that, I know that you've mentioned to me that there are a lot of different campaigns that you've run through this, that your partners are running with you, lots of different things. On this slide, we're seeing 3 different types of campaigns that you're doing. Could you briefly go through all 3 of them? Tell me what they are. And then you have about a month until Awareness Month. Where are you now with the planning? How is that being affected? Tell us a little more.
Yeah, so September is typically our biggest, busiest month because it is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and we do have just a number of campaigns that we run, in addition to a tremendous amount of third-party events that take place. This year, unfortunately, majority of those are not happening because they just can't, and so we're trying to still be creative to think of ways to get folks involved and also raise money. So one of those is with this Instagram donation sticker. Obviously, social media is huge for people, and I feel like especially now, people are on social media even more these days. And so this is just really a fun way for people to raise money on those platforms without really having to do very much. We give step by step, this is how you add this sticker, and sort of go. And it also really is a double help for us because it's just sharing awareness and spreading awareness on everybody's social media, which is always a plus for us.
Yeah, huge. I'm gonna actually just pause on a second with that one. Is this a lot of heavy lift on your side to set this up?
No. It's really easy. We do have somebody on our staff that does manage all of our communications and our social media. But this is a pretty easy setup. I mean, I think all of the Facebook and Instagram in particular have just made it so easy to fundraise. I mean, they really have made it easy for the charity and for donors. So it's a simple kind of no-brainer opportunity for people.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Okay, you can keep going with the other two, but thank you for this. It's awesome.
Yeah, so another initiative is our Coins for Cure. It's typically just a standard coin drive. So a lot of schools participate in it, businesses, folks will just put a coin jar out. A lot of times with our schools in the month of September for football games on Friday night, they'll have a gold out game. And encourage folks to wear all gold. They'll also put these coin jars out, some of our cure balloons. So these coin jars really just have a multitude of uses. However, this year, a lot of those opportunities are not really going to exist. Some still will, so we didn't want to get rid of the program completely. We've just created a little bit of a hybrid model so that folks can also have a virtual component to it. So you can have your physical coin jar, but you can also set up a virtual page to raise money for your Coins for Cure team, if you will, in the month of September. We are still hammering out some details for that because obviously it's ever changing, and we've had to quickly kind of shift a bunch of this stuff. So that is the plan for now, though, is a kind of hybrid model this year for that Coins for Cure program. And then our other one is this gold mailbox program. This is huge for us in September. This year alone, we anticipate selling about 7,000 bows, which should bring in a little over $180,000 for us. So we sell these bows for $25. They attach to your mailbox. The expense is pretty minimal because we're buying stuff in bulk. And then we really have to rely on a lot of volunteers to help make all of these 7,000 bows between Atlanta and Savannah. This program is really championed by neighborhood captains. That these neighborhood captains, we provide them a toolkit, a flyer, social media templates to really get the word out in their neighborhood and help us turn the streets gold for September for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So it's a really popular program every year. It continues to grow, and every year it kind of continues to blow our mind how many people want a gold bow on their mailbox. It's incredible.
I love it. I think that's great. Paint the streets gold. And two, I think it's a great idea of how you're able to continue with your volunteers and utilize them in kind of an uncertain time, but continue with that. Fantastic job.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I love the paint the streets gold. And so now we're going to kind of move into, a bigger event that you guys did, your Believe Gala. And Believe is one of the strongest tools in a fundraiser's toolkit. So Susanna and Mandy, can you guys talk us through how the Believe Ball transitioned, from a large in-person event and into that virtual landscape?
Absolutely. Into this, we'll just start talking about, Mandy, can you tell us just like a little bit about what components did you have during this Believe Ball, and kind of how did you set up from going from in-person to virtual? What was that experience like?
Yeah, so when we knew that this had to go virtual, we knew obviously we had to act very quickly, and we also really wanted to create something a little bit different than everything we were seeing, at least in our market. So we really put our heads together and worked with board members as well to really brainstorm and come up with ideas of what this event could look like, how we could get people to participate. So the main elements of it is, of course, we had a silent auction. We had our donation appeal, which we call Fund a Cure. It's typically a paddle raise, but this year it was all virtual. And then we had some celebrity components that I think we can get into. But really, I think a lot of the success was in a lot of the planning and setting it up. for me, I really wanted to make sure that people got registered on GiveSmart in advance, because it was just going to help drive traffic night of, increase those donations for the silent auction. But also I knew that when we made the ask night of for people to kind of virtually raise their paddle and fund a cure, it was going to be so much easier if you were already registered on GiveSmart to give. So we created an incentive to get people to register and said, you know, everybody that's registered by this date and time will be entered into a drawing for a Yeti cooler. And that was tremendously successful. So that was a great piece. And then I think also just marketing. I mean, we really put a lot of thought, time, and energy into email campaigns, social media, and just getting the word out there about what the event is and how you can join.
That's perfect. The communication piece, the pre-registration, getting people in the door, it's exactly what we're encouraging and hearing. Moving into this, you guys had some huge names in your ball. This is so cool. Can you tell me a little bit about how you guys made this happen, and how did you incorporate this into your mission and keep some of that balance there into your program?
Yeah, so we are really fortunate. Jeff Foxworthy has been a longtime friend and supporter of Cure. He's actually been honored at our ball several years ago and just remained a great supporter. And so we reached out and kind of said, hey, can you help us here? We wanted him to help host the event, just to kind of keep it a little bit lighthearted and professional at the same time. And he was so accommodating and ready to help. The other kind of big names, you know, Michael Bolton, Brett Eldridge, Katie Tunstall, and then Miss Rock of Ages, they are all have relationships to our board members. So we were really lucky there. So our board members made those initial asks, kind of saying, hey, here's what we're thinking. We don't have all the details yet, but would you be involved? And so getting them kind of signed on early, and then communicating details as it happened. You know, it can be challenging, I think, with celebrities, for those of you that have worked with them, because sometimes they have kind of their own timetable, and they might have a little bit of a delayed response. So getting in with communicating early was key. And I think, you know, we just really wanted it to still feel genuine and about Cure and the Believe Ball. And, you know, especially for Jeff, I mean, he really spoke to the fact that Cure is important to him, to his wife, to their family. They support Cure. He shared a personal impact story of one of our Cure kiddos that he had an opportunity to meet a few years ago, and just how that touched him. So that way it could at least still tie into our mission, like you were referencing, Susanna, and not just look like, oh, we found these celebrities that will sing you a song kind of thing.
That's great. I'm sure that was fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. I know people will have more questions on tips of how you all did that. Moving into here, though, this is a screenshot from your Believe Ball website that you all had. And you were actually able to incorporate the experience of a menu into this ball. Could you tell us a little bit about what we're seeing and how did people react?
Yeah, so every year at the ball, the food is always delicious. And so we kind of wanted to recreate that. So Chef Jamie Adams is one of, you know, a big name chef here in Atlanta, and he also is a friend of Cure, and he has supported us through our auctions for a number of years. And so we reached out to him right away when we knew it was going virtual and said, hey, we kind of want to do something a little bit out of the box and create an opportunity for folks to enjoy a virtual Believe Ball dinner at home. Would you help us? And he immediately was on board. So he crafted the 3-course menu. He created and provided the recipes. And then we sent a filming crew to film him doing a cooking demonstration. We provided the cooking demonstration as well as the recipes, a shopping list, everything you would need. We provided those to guests several days ahead of the event, so that way they could get prepared, do their shopping, and have that meal ready and and made so that they could enjoy it during the virtual belief ball.
I love it. This is such a great component to continue on with. And we actually just got a question in. I'm curious. How many guests did attract to the virtual ball compared to your in-person ball? And did you change pricing for ticketing or anything to join in?
So we ended up having, after looking through some analytics, I think it was around 1,200 people that watched the event that night versus usually it's a 600 people in-person event. So there's definitely more people involved, which was great. In terms of pricing, we really went back and forth on this in the beginning because typically the Believe Ball is, I mean, it is our $1 million black tie gala. So it's very exclusive, if you will. I mean, there is a high price point. And so we didn't know, do we sort of try and keep that exclusivity to it, or do we open it up? And ultimately, we wanted to create an opportunity to reach folks that we wouldn't typically be able to reach, and also give people an opportunity to experience the ball that maybe wouldn't typically experience it. So it was free, completely free. Our sponsors, we already had our sponsors committed well in advance. So most of them were still on board with supporting, and it allowed us to not charge a ticket price to view the event.
Very cool. I'm hearing a theme with all your virtual events that you're really getting to expand your reach by going virtual, which is so cool. I'm curious too, what platform did you use to live stream?
So we actually worked with an ideas company, creative company here in Atlanta, and they created a platform for us. So it is all built into this platform. I know a lot of folks are using like YouTube or Facebook Live, but ours was all built into this platform.
I love it. Ideas company. How cool. And in this slide, we'll move in here. And these are screenshots from your actual GiveSmart website that you had. I absolutely love that you made this so easy for your user experience, and especially like this video that you included here. I can't imagine how much time that saved you internally describing things. But really what sticks out is a question that we get a lot about this item collection button. Can you guys tell us how you ended up doing your item collection and getting your items out to people?
Yeah, first I'd like to say the button feature that was added in some time ago, but within this past year for GiveSmart, it's incredible. I feel like I used it so many times for this particular event because it just made it so easy to have it all very clean on that homepage without it feeling like information overload. So I use those buttons. That's perfect. But with the item redemption, this is something that I really had a difficult time with when everything started switching to virtual. How in the world do we handle this with our Spring Fever event? And I looked everywhere. How are other people doing it? What's the policy that people are kind of using? And I couldn't find anything. So really, we kind of had to get creative with it. And ultimately, we decided that for folks that are outside of our kind of metro area, that we would ship most items to them, but they would be responsible for any fees associated with the shipping. If an item wasn't eligible for shipping, like alcohol, for example, or we had like one of the little kids' Mercedes cars that just would have been huge and so expensive to ship, we noted that directly on the item description so that they knew this item is not eligible for shipping. And so I think ultimately it's just whatever you decide makes sense for your organization. You just have to make it very, very clear and be upfront with folks before they even start bidding. You know, I just think the worst thing would be to ask somebody to pay for an auction item and then you're like, oh, by the way, you have to come pick it up, and we're in Atlanta and you know they live in Chicago. So just being upfront and this is how it's going to work. For those folks that are able to get to the office, because our office isn't open full time right now, we actually created like a Survey Monkey sign up. So we have scheduled time slots that we have allowed a certain amount of people for each time slot so that we don't get inundated with like 20 people all showing up at noon to pick up their item. So folks sign up for a window of time that they come and pick up their items. So that way then we can be prepared and know exactly what items to have pulled and when. And so far it's working really well.
Yeah, that is very smart. I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm curious too, how did you charge for shipping? Did you add that on after, or what did that look like?
It is an after piece, and it's actually the reason why we do not typically ship, because it's kind of a pain. But we do just communicate with those winners on a one-off to let them know, okay, this is how much, based on however many items that they won, this is how much your shipping is going to cost, plus if any of it had to be insured. So we give them that cost and then send them a link to just go online and pay for that shipping.
Very smart. Thanks for sharing. That's very helpful, I'm sure, for many. Jumping in kind of the sponsors here, we'll quickly talk about this. I know you guys had some pre-committed sponsors, and during that, postponement time, you had to have those conversations with people to continue on board. You mentioned a little bit earlier, but can you give any tips or best practices around those conversations of maybe people who are working on that stuff now?
Yeah, so I think really it's just to, again, be honest with your sponsors and reach out to them as soon as you can. So for us, as soon as we knew that this was going virtual, myself and our executive director, we sort of split our list of sponsors in half, and we each reached out to each of those sponsors individually to let them know exactly what's happening, and essentially just ask for their continued support in a really kind, soft ask, if you will, but offer an opportunity for a refund if they would like to have one. And so then we just kind of would continue to update them as new advances happened. We also provided them with an electronic invitation and asked them to please send this to all of the people that they would typically be inviting to join them at their table night of, and just asking them, to please show up virtually and have your friends and family join.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think just the continuous conversation and keeping those relationships alive is key. And I'm curious too, you don't have to share numbers here, but can you give a little bit about how was the success of these numbers, and did you overall hit your goal, and compared to expenses in the past, what does that look like for you guys?
So we definitely didn't raise the same amount that we would typically raise at an in-person event, but we knew that was going to happen. In person, we raised a little over 1.3 million. We knew that would not happen for just a variety of reasons. But we were able to pull off about 800,000, which we set a goal at 750. So we said, if we can hit 750, we're going to feel really good about it. So we came just over that. We were really excited for it. But I mean, it really just goes to show the nature that of what we're all experiencing right now with these virtual events. They can still be very successful, but at the end of the day, I think, you can't fully replace an in-person event, but you can do pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you guys did amazing on that. And going right into this, your Fundacure, right? That big moment for you guys. And I know you mentioned earlier that you guys had a huge paddle raise. Tell me a little bit about the experience from going from, a large paddle raise into that virtual donation ask, or Fundacure. Love that word.
Okay, yeah, this part is the part that I think my executive director and I were most nervous about, because historically that paddle raise, I mean, it can bring in over $500,000 just that night. You've got a really dynamic auctioneer that is up there helping getting those paddles up in the air. Plus there's that peer pressure element that you see so often. So how do you sort of recreate that virtually? And really what we knew is you can't exactly recreate it, but let's just reimagine it. So we had an opportunity for a match, and we thought that this was a great time to put it in virtually so that it would help to get people to still give, because now there's this challenge attached to it. So we found this match to be really successful for us. I think it was helpful both for small and large donations, because I think folks that maybe can't give at very high levels, but they just want to give something, it makes them feel like their donation is going even farther because it can double for them. So that match was just a really great element. And I think for us, it's just always important that you market it. You let people know in advance that, hey, there's going to be a Fundacure, you know, kind of be prepared, if you will, so that it's not just thrown at them all of a sudden and they hadn't really thought about how they would give or how they could give. So we create our levels every year, and we give really tangible benefits, you know, for what their dollars can fund. And I think that that really helps people as well, so that they understand, and it kind of helps to put a face to it for them.
Absolutely. I think the levels and the match are two really key takeaways here. Really quick, curious, did you guys keep with an auctioneer, or kind of what did that guest experience look like from that side?
Yeah, so we did not, which made me sad at first, because I love our auctioneer so much. I think he is just the best in the business. He's incredible, and to not have him was just, it was a difficult decision. But ultimately, what I felt like I was seeing is so many of the live elements that you're seeing, they're hard. And sometimes people don't give right when the ask is made. And so there's sort of that awkwardness. And so for me, we just felt like ultimately it wasn't really a justified expense, because we didn't feel like we wanted to have that, you know, live component. And it worked out as well as it could. I think that it was the right decision for us, but I mean, it's definitely different to not have that auctioneer in person and then you go to a virtual event. But for us, it was just, we felt like, you know, the right decision.
Absolutely. I think every organization has to make, you know, the decisions that fits their needs the best. So thank you for sharing. Curious how that went. All right, we're going to move right into the next slide here. And so I come from a background also in development as well before jumping onto GiveSmart. And something after every event that drove me crazy was figuring out how to send thank you emails. Who do I send it to? How many letters do I send? What is the verbiage? It was messy. So I'm curious, you had this thank you email. Tell me a little bit about it. Who did it go to, and kind of what were the key components that you put into it?
Yeah, so we sent this to anybody that supported or participated in the virtual Believe Ball in any capacity. So that would be anybody that was registered through GiveSmart, anybody that made a donation, maybe that wasn't in GiveSmart, so like a check, any of those donors, as well as any of our sponsors, the table hosts, anybody that kind of touched this event. We wanted them to know that they made an impact, and here's what it was. And so for us, the thank you, we just want it to be a true thank you. This is what you were able to do for Cure. This is what, you know, you raised for Cure, and how it will support our families during this time. And then we also just included our Fundacure piece in it as a very soft part. Like we didn't want it to be an in your face, like, thanks, but hey, will you still give some more? But really as a soft ask for folks that maybe didn't have an opportunity to give that night, they missed it, you know, whatever the case may be, letting them know that your support is still appreciated and welcomed.
That's wonderful. And here in this email, this is another section that we screenshot out. You asked for feedback. You actually gave an incentive to give feedback. I'm curious, how much participation did you get with this, and what kind of responses came in?
Yeah, so of course, because this is a new landscape for all of us with the virtual events, and anticipate having to do more at some point. We wanted to know, how did this work? What do we need to do different, kind of thing. So typically, at least what we find is people don't really participate in surveys at all, unless they have an incentive. So with that, we got about 30 people to provide feedback, which is actually really good for us. But so we got about 30 people that provided feedback, and across the board, it was all really, really positive. I think what we found is that people felt like the length of it was perfect, because we asked, do you feel like it should have been shorter, longer, whatever? The length of it was perfect. People loved the silent auction. We are still getting comments about the auction, and people love the competitive nature of it, that they're getting texts when they've been outbid, that it all looked really clean and easy to use. And then also just feedback that they felt like it was a really great balance of entertainment, patient stories, cures impact, and kind of an update on what we're doing. So it was really great feedback to have.
Very cool. I love that you got the feedback, so you really get some, answers in there. And a question that we keep getting asked on the side is, how long was your program? What did that look like?
Yeah, so it ended up being just over 40 minutes. So from the very beginning, when we were planning, we felt like our sweet spot was going to be 45 minutes. As we were watching a lot of other virtual events that went on for an hour, some even an hour and a half, it's hard to keep your attention for that long on a computer screen, especially when folks are at home, oftentimes with children or just other things going on. So it was just over 40 minutes.
Got it. Thanks so much. So great to hear all of this.
Yeah, that does sound like the sweet spot. And moving on, since we are also at about approximately 40 minutes as well, I want to turn over to Kirsten. So Mandy and Susanna, you get a moment just to, stretch your legs. But Kirsten, over to you on some cool data points and sort of what we've been seeing from the Give Smart side of things.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Kelsey. So we have definitely been seeing some interesting trends develop in this new virtual realm that we're living in. So if we take a look at those two pie charts on the left, I don't think it's going to be any surprise that we've seen an increase in the amount of traffic coming to our sites from social media. Now, social media has always played an important part and a role as a platform to market your campaign. However, the direct impact that it has in the success of your campaign is just continuing to grow. Now, when we look at that 2019 versus 2020, a 6.8% increase may not seem drastic when you compare it, but I want to iterate that each one of those percentage points equates to 40,000 views. That's a lot of views. So this is even more important when we compare the fact that that giant blue pie slice, which is our direct channel views, AKA those existing users that are already on your sites, that are already clicking through their personalized links that they got when they registered. Now, as opposed to our green pie slice there, our social media slice, those views may have a sprinkling of some of those existing users, but a lot of that traffic is new users. And as we know, new users carry the potential for additional revenue. So despite the fact that we've seen Instagram, starting to gain some traction as a marketing resource, Facebook still holds that #1 top spot by bringing in an overwhelming 80% of the social media views to our sites. So we flip over to the next one here. When we take that information and you're thinking about getting your message out there, it's important to have, of course, that impactful statement or that eye-catching image, but it's also just as important to make sure that your audience is on their device and has the time to view and click through into your link. So with many people still working from home in this environment, we've started to see a more even distribution, as you can see on the left, of users accessing our sites throughout the week, typically between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. when most people are awake. Now, however, you will start to notice as we near the end of the week, starting on Thursday, people start gearing up and getting ready to participate. So you're really going to want to take advantage of this by getting your message out there that weekend before the event to generate that initial interest. And then you're going to want to, of course, send another message about a day or two before that event as a reminder. Now, what this is going to allow you to do is take full advantage of those times that people will be most likely to click through onto your messages. Now, you can, of course, you can always sprinkle in some additional messages here or there, whatever you want. Just make sure you keep it, you know, in the forefront and in people's view. But be sure to always take advantage of those like hot spot times when people are most likely to be on their device. Now, with most of our viewers accessing our campaign sites via their mobile device, they typically are spending anywhere approximately 3 minutes per viewing cycle. And during these 3 minutes, they're going to be flipping back and forth between about 6 pages on a campaign site per viewing cycle, which means they may start on your home page and they'll flip to your items page, you know, the donate page. And if they go back to the home page, that counts as another view. So viewing the same page twice counts as 2 views. So if we continue on to the next slide. So here, you know, we know it's a tough decision that when you're trying to decide if you want to take your in-person event that's typically in person, you've had it in person every year, and trying to decide if you want to make the flip to a virtual one. We know that's difficult, but hopefully now that you've heard some of these ideas and logistics from Mandy, it's going to make that decision a little easier. And I pulled some analytics here and data from 4 of our clients who took their yearly in-person event and made the jump to virtual this year. Now, I didn't want to call out these clients by name, hence I have the generic event titles, but a little bit of background here regarding these guys. They all occurred during the lockdown between the months of April and June of this year. And they were all held during the same time frame as last year. So if it was held in April of last year, it was held in April of this year, just to kind of keep it as apples to apples as we could. Now, what all of these events had in common is they, 1, increased their social media presence, and 2, increase the number of days that their auctions were available. Now, for most of these sites, what that translated into was an increased number of views and a significant increase in their number of users. And if you look at that middle column, that users right there in the middle, this is the data set that I really want to highlight here because these are important. Because to be counted as a user, the individual has to actually register on your site. And once they've registered, you've now collected that contact info. Now, in most cases, the number of users was doubled. And in one case, as you see down there in event D, the number of users was 8 times the amount in their virtual event as opposed to their in-person event. Now, I want to mention too, that even though the revenue data I didn't put on here, 3 of the 4 of these events brought in as much or more revenue with their virtual campaign than what they did with their in-person event that prior year. Regardless of the fact that they had less items, as you can see there, since most of their revenue came from donations. The other event that was listed that didn't bring as much or more still ended up bringing in 75% of the revenue that it did the prior year, with, again, most of that coming from donations. But I just want to iterate that regardless of how successful your event is, no event has any chance of success if it doesn't even occur.
Totally. And I just want to jump in here. Thank you, Kirsten, because, you know, we've been doing these webinars every week. And I think by far, this has definitely been my favorite data slide that we have looked at thus far. So thank you so much for pulling that together and sharing that, because I think it's very, very telling, like you said, and ensuring that organizations have ways to collect donations as well, you know, despite maybe auction troubles. So I just want to jump in before we open up for Q&A for these last 10 minutes, just a reminder of our upcoming webinars. And next week we'll be joined by Jim Caparo from Misericordia, based out of Chicago, Illinois, talking about some innovative things that they've been doing as of late. And our August monthly webinar is on August 26th, which will be centered around engaging champions for your cause. And so with that, we are going to jump to some questions that we have coming in. Don't worry, if we don't get to the question that you asked today, our team will be following up with you. We ask that you please be patient. We've had such a large volume of questions, so it might take a day or two, but you will hear from someone on our team. So without further ado, let's jump in. So, okay, this question could be for Mandy or Susanna. It is a question about how do you get corporate sponsors?
Well, for us at Cure, for each event, it's very different, and our events all have a different market, and so we define kind of who is the right ask for each event. So for example, our Believe Ball is typically a black tie event. It's a lot of corporate sponsors that want to be in the room with a certain kind of level of executive. And so a lot of our sponsors just come from our personal relationships that we've made with them. Our board is incredibly instrumental in opening the door and making a lot of these asks for our corporate sponsors. Most of them are not, you know, like a cold call. It's really, really relationship driven.
Totally. That makes sense. Another question, Mandy, is for you. So regarding your Believe Gala, how did you facilitate a virtual how did you facilitate a virtual paddle raise for your donation appeal portion? The second part of this question is, did you also show the donations coming in real time?
So for each level, we created their own item in GiveSmart as a donation item, so that way it was also showing up like on the items page, which I think is great. Each level had its own graphic and then a description of what it could fund. So we linked directly to those pages in our marketing components for each level on our virtual platform. It would link right over to those Fund a Cure levels, so that people could purchase it just like you would an instant item, which I think is so easy and helpful. And we did not end up using a leaderboard in real time to show the funds coming in. I've seen it done a lot and I actually do really like it. We just didn't have it on this particular platform.
Got it. Okay, and also in regard to the Believe Gala, how soon in advance did you open registrations for the Believe Ball?
We opened up registration a few weeks in advance, just so that way we could start pushing people to the site. I would say maybe 2.5, 3 weeks. We started pushing people there with that incentive, and then we just had information on it, like specifically for the auction items, that they would know items coming soon, check back. The silent auction will open on Wednesday at 9 a.m. and close on Saturday at 9 p.m.
Okay. And so this is another question. This could be for Mandy or Kirsten. How do you find a match for donations? Is it a company? Is it an individual?
I mean, for ours, this year, we were really lucky. We had somebody last year that did this match for us at the in-person event. It was one of our donors, and they came back this year and said that they wanted to give at that same level, and asked if we would like to use it for a match or if we needed to use it for another purpose. So for us, it was, you know, kind of easy. I hate to say that. In the past, when we have done it, not this year, but with others, we've just kind of gone to, maybe we've done both a company and an individual that has been a major donor at a particular level and that has a history of giving at these events, and just asked, would you consider giving, but giving in a different way, and instead making it a challenge grant. And most times people are more than happy to help if they were already going to give anyways, because it doubles an impact.
Yeah, that makes sense. Asking them to kind of the donation that can sort of serve in a greater way. Another question for you, Mandy, is how much of the Believe Ball was live versus pre-recorded?
It was actually all pre-recorded. So this was another thing that we went back and forth on, and just felt like a lot of the live can at times come off as awkward if you don't have filler, and there's also less risk when it is pre-recorded. And so we opted to do all of it pre-recorded, but it just became available and went live at a particular time. And since it wasn't like on YouTube or anything, people couldn't fast forward through. So it started live at 7. You couldn't, like at 7 o'clock, fast forward to see the middle of the program.
I see. That makes sense. So kind of like a controlled pre-recorded, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have time for a few more. Here's a question for Kirsten. We typically have our annual gala on a Saturday evening, but thought about having a virtual fundraiser on a Thursday evening and that this might provide more engagement. Any best practices on the best day and time to hold the live stream portion of the fundraiser?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great question. We have seen people doing, more live streams throughout the week. You do have to consider that though, because some people are, working from home, they're staring at their computer all day. So sometimes they're ready to log off and rest their eyes at the end of that day during the week. However, we have seen, successful live streams that are occurring during the week. I would say though that your most successful ones are most often happening on the weekends, even utilizing a Sunday. I mean, it doesn't have to be a Saturday. So Sunday, sometimes it's just kind of a fun thing for people to wind down their weekend with. So if you're planning for Thursday, I would not change it. Go for it. See how it goes. But then if things need to modify in the future, then you could definitely make that jump to the weekend for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. We unfortunately we are at time. We do have a lot more questions, but as I mentioned before, we will get to all of you. And just a note for Mandy, a comment that came through, not a question, but somebody on the webinar today just wanted to say thank you to Cure and everything that they do because they themselves are a childhood cancer survivor. So that's making me emotional, but thank you for everything the organization does. And with that, thank you again for Mandy and Kirsten and Susanna for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Best of luck out there. We support you. We are here for you. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Kelsey.